Hi everyone, welcome to Everything Dog Training podcast with me, John McGuigan, Glasgow dog trainer and behaviour consultant. If you hear any chiming in the background, it's because Logan's lying on the bed. Always quiet until I start recording and start speaking. He does this on Zoom calls as well, and then he starts getting a little bit vocal. So welcome back if you're listening again, and welcome if you're listening for the first time. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and your busy schedule to listen to me and our guest today, Tess Erngren. So Erngren is the Anglo pronunciation of it, and the Swedish pronunciation of it, I'm going to try and get this right, is Erngren. Tess Erngren. So Tess is a good friend of mine. I've known her for a long time. I always love my conversations with her. We could talk a lot, and for many hours, and we have when we meet at conferences and seminars and things like that. So she's an awesome human being. One of these people that has come into my life and truly enriched my life, and I'm truly grateful to call her my friend. So today what we're doing is we're talking about how to have conversations with people who don't agree with us in relation to dog training, and do that without compromise. Now we can compromise in, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I won't compromise in my ethics. I will be flexible in my approach, and I will be open to learning new things, but I am not flexible in my ethics regarding my treatment of animals or treatment of dogs when I'm training them. I try and apply those same things to humans, slightly different with humans because the human has they consent to the interaction. Okay, so if somebody comes towards me and is more aggressive than I would like, I have tools at my disposal that I can engage with them or not. Okay, so I get this quite a lot on social media when people come on and ask me or demand my answers to things, and I will shut them down quite quickly, and a lot of the time I'll come back and say that's quite an aversive approach you've taken there, and I says I didn't ask for this exchange. Okay, I'm putting a boundary in place. Now that's slightly different in our lives with our dogs because, as I said before, it's a benevolent dictatorship at best, our life with our dog. So the dog doesn't decide that they're going to come into our house, and they don't decide what training methods that we're going to use, even what behaviours we're going to teach them. And because of that, there's a change in the dynamic there, and this is why my ethics and my treatment towards dogs tend to be softer than they are with people. However, I try and treat people as best as I can, as well as I can, to the best of my ability most often. So that's what we're talking about today. If you're new to the podcast, what I do with the guests when I ask them to come on, is to get voices that we either rarely hear from or never hear from. When I am doing a presentation, so I did a weekend of presentations in Maine in the US in end of July, and there were 20 people in the room, and the average age was, say, probably about 40 years old. Okay, so we've got 800 years of experience of being humans on this planet in that room, and there'll be lots of diverse experiences there that some of us may never have heard before or never even have thought about. And I want to hear those stories. I want to hear that insight from people, which is why I get different guests on. I've got somebody coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and this person didn't use this term, but I see other trainers using this term, that they're a baby trainer. Okay, they're a baby trainer. They're not a baby trainer because you're not a baby. You're maybe new into the field of dog training or dog care, but that doesn't mean that you haven't had a life beforehand. And the lessons that you've learned in that life, and the insight and the worldview that you hold is relevant to how you interact with your dogs, and I want to hear that insight and those stories. So that's when I get guests on. There's a number of reasons, but that's one of them. It's so that we're not hearing from the same 5 people all the time who just do the rounds on the podcasts and I've heard everything you've got to say before. Okay. There's a few people that I will listen to over and over again. There's certain people that when I go to conferences I will always seek out their lectures because there's new insights, or I'm in a different place in my own learning to listen to them. So we can learn broadly and we can also learn deeply. But I'm trying to give some breadth to the voices in this field. And yeah, so that's what we're talking about with Tess today. So Tess has an MSc in environmental psychology. She founded Good Dog School in Norway in 2016, which runs Good Dog Academy, teaching instructors and behaviourists, and Good Dog Therapy, which teaches social work teams. So in true Tess style, that's as much of a bio as she's given me, but that's not doing her that's doing her a massive disservice for the work that Tess does in the world and what she has given to dog training, both in our local area and beyond. Tess spends the summers in Scandinavia, so she's Swedish, but she's lived in Norway for a long time. Spends summers in Norway with her 2 dogs, and then travels as a kind of nomad in southern Europe over the winter months in the south of France and Italy. Sounds like an exquisite lifestyle, and does workshops and talks on dog training and therapy. And you can reach her at Good Dog Best Friends on Instagram and Facebook, so you can get that. I'll stick those links in the bio. And you can also get her through her website, which is gooddog.no. So www.gooddog.no. Alright, so let's get into the conversation with Tess. It's been one of my favourites so far. So where are you, Tess? Where are you just now?
Well, right now, yeah, it's not that easy for you to know, is it?
No.
Where to pin me down? But no. I'm in the Norwegian mountains, way up in the Norwegian mountains. So yeah, that bad connection, that could be on me, definitely.
How far north are you?
I'm 4 hours north of Oslo and on 1,000 meters altitude.
Oh, nice. Okay. And when do you head off? So you're traveling down through, you go Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, then down to Italy?
Yeah, add France too. Yeah, so I'm leaving end of October, and then I'll start driving south, and I'll do my little lecturing tour, and then I suffer on the Italian Riviera for 3 months, and then I go back up north again.
That sounds hellish. 8 months on the Riviera. It sounds terrible.
Absolutely terrible. It's such a drag. Absolutely no. It's I love my life. I love my job, and thank you for letting me come on here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah. Right. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the modern dog trainer, and perhaps very professionally nudging by the big debacle that's going on. What if we take a stand or if we don't take a stand? And since I come from a behavioral but also psychology background, I'd love to talk a little bit about why is it so hard for us to change.
So we're talking about that when you mentioned that kind of the debacle that's ongoing. We've had, and it's been going on forever. It's been going on for as long as I've been in dog training, which is nearly 17 years or so now. But and then there's been a whole bunch of stuff. So depending on when you're listening to this, we're recording this September 2024, and a couple of weeks ago there's been some trainers getting together talking about how to kind of bridge the divide between trainers that are willing to use positive methods and those that are willing to use aversive methods. So that's just to give you a bit of context for that. Okay, so let's hear what you got to say.
Well, first of all, I am going to be a bit rude and call you out on using the term positive methods, because that will only make it really, really, really confusing for people that are perhaps not as knowledgeable about the terminology as we are. Yeah. Because when we talk about modern trainers, which is of course also another label, but modern trainers will use positive reinforcement training, or in a more folksy word, reward-based training. And as soon as and then you have aversive trainers or traditional trainers. In between here, we have the balanced trainers that are sort of using a little bit of positive reinforcement and a little bit of punishers. But I always get an itch when I see people that are supposedly positive reinforcement trainers talk about positive training methods. That does not help the regular dog caretaker. Because how are we, positive or negative, as you know, when we talk about it like this, is not about the experience the dog has. It's if we're adding something or taking something away. And as soon as we mix it up with saying, I am a positive dog trainer, that is not professional enough for me. And that actually already puts that person in a box measuring the knowledge.
What would you say? Because there's a few things there. So we've got the operant learning with positive and negative, which is really clear meanings. But we've also got a positive emotional response, which is entirely different. And these are and then people say I use. So what terminology would you prefer?
But when I'm talking to the regular dog person or the caretaker, I just use reward-based.
Okay.
Reward-based. To just get out of the whole positive, negative, blah, 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 because that very easily gets mixed up and just unnecessarily confusing.
Yeah.
So yes, I would go with reward-based training. And we've actually had the discussion here in Scandinavia in what are we supposed to call it to make it easy for everyone to understand and not trying to sound fancy. Because actually, when we do talk about the debate that we're having now, that's been going on forever, but sort of culminating now, is that you see the trainers that are sort of trying to take the science-based trainers down, like us. We will go with science, or we will change with science. But then you see very quickly how they start trying to use the terminology, but not understanding it fully. Yeah. And that creates a lot of misunderstanding. So either we make it very simple, yeah. Or if depending again on what group are we talking to, we can put the level of the language, use of language. It's because words matter a lot. And so only that to take it into the discussion is that words matter. And another way that I will look at change is that reward-based trainers or positive reinforcement trainers, they no longer use words as obedience. Yeah. We change them to cooperation, right? We don't use commands. We train cues. So words matter in so many ways, both in how to come across with easy, simple knowledge, but also making a statement on where you stand, where you are ethically. Yeah. in the world of dog training.
So I'll just expand a little bit on that. When we're talking about science-based trainers, so we've learned from scientists who then do the research and then they apply the knowledge they apply those what they've researched. We'll apply it and then give them feedback. So there's loads of trainers out there that will do the application of it. And our position is that positive reinforcement works, which we know it does. And although aversive training does work, it's because of the fallout from that. So nobody likes getting shouted at. Nobody likes getting smacked. And it has to go and I'm reluctant to use the word trauma, right? But that negative experience, negative as in bad experience, has to be expressed somewhere, and it'll either be expressed internally in the dog through illnesses, inability to settle, the dog's nervous system getting fried and all those types of things, or it'll be expressed externally with more behaviour which seems unrelated to the initial behaviour. So your dog might start licking their paws, or they might start becoming destructive if we are using these, and it's the link between the two of them isn't apparent unless you know that that's the fallout from it. So we know that ourselves from our own background. Adults are the way that they are because of all the shit that they went through as children, right? Like that. And the better your childhood is, more robust it is, and more support, then the more rounded you are as an adult. So that's to give some background for why we call ourselves science-based trainers.
Right. Yes. And as you say, and also I want to add to that because yes, we're science-based. We're constantly reading up on the latest science and changing what we say and we do, because science changes, the fact changes, and daring to do that, we come into something very interesting when I very often post things online. I've taken on a role to sort of be the trailblazer, to breakaway, and then I have colleagues that will be coming one step behind me, sort of paving the way and making the omelette out of the crushed eggs. So I've taken that on me to be the one that dares to speak the truth, and my truth, of course, but also a science-based truth, sprinkled with my ethics. And when I do that, I get a lot of reactions. And so this is not for everyone. I mean, my friends and colleagues like yourself, you know, when I'm putting one of these posts out there and you all sort of just bring out the popcorn and you go, all right, here we go. And you're just enjoying the comment fields exploding. Yeah. And yes, I do that very deliberately because I want the discussion. Change can only happen if someone breaks the rules, breaks the norms, creates a discussion, and creates a provocation that in its turn, it makes a reflection, and then we'll have progression as a result of that. And when I post these, for example, the other day, I posted that obedient dogs always makes me a bit sad.
Yeah.
It really does. When I say terribly obedient dogs, or, they don't think for themselves, they're just following every order from their humans, it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. And if I post something like that, my Facebook and my Instagram will just blow up. Yeah. And I know it does because it's touching people's, it's a backfire effect, we call it in this so-called psychology world, that if I push a button that is questioning someone's beliefs, actually in the brain, we can see in fMRIs, the magnetic, that the brain starts firing off as we were under a threat, under a gunpoint threat. So being, questioning what you believe to be right, even if it's whatever it is that is a core value, it creates an incredibly strong backfire effect and an incredibly strong feeling of dissonance or uncomfortableness in your brain. And if this is something that is also regarding, you have really tried for the best of your ability for years to take care of your dog, helping your dog, something that's very important to you. And I go out and say, hey, that was completely unnecessary. You've been unfair. The backfire effect is going to be incredibly strong because you really didn't want to do it to be a horrible person. You just didn't know better. Yeah. So that, I know that is very provocative, but I also want it because I know that when people start thinking about what they've been doing, at least that's a start. And then we have the rest of the journey that I'm also building up for, is helping people to forgive themselves for doing what is that? To handle the dog in a not correct way. I don't want to call it correct, but being unfair to the dogs. Just forgiving yourself because things you did when you didn't know better, but now you know better, and to dare to cross that bridge to become a crossover trainer. We need help. We need help forgiving ourselves. We truly do.
So there's a few things there which were interesting. I just want to expand a little bit on when you were saying there that about that backfire effect. So you say something, okay, so it is provocative, but you're not doing it to provoke people. You're doing it, and there's a little bit of a difference there. You're not doing it to deliberately provoke people, but it is provocative. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yes, that's absolutely
right. But that's
right.
not your intention. Your intention is to break ground, not to piss people off, right?
Absolutely. Right. And I will never say that I know exactly where that uh,
Mm.
border is. It's so
Yeah.
hard because we you try out and you realize like, oh, holy crap, that one took off way more than I actually expected it or intended it to do. And then so it's so interesting to see what is that, when do I push too far?
Yeah. Yeah.
or not too far, and we're still learning. I mean, social
Yeah.
media is a, oh my lord, I mean, as a behaviorist, it's a fascinating place to be, and we're learning every day. But the ultimate answer is that I do want the discussion. I want people to react. And but yes, what is the most constructive way of doing it? Can I do it streamlined perfectly all the way? No, not at
Of
all.
course
I will
not.
no, I will step on toes. I will regret some posts. Absolutely. Again, I mean, when I know better, I do better.
Yeah. I remember there was a book that I read, and I read it 30 years ago before I joined the police, and it was a guy who's a Vietnam vet, and he came back and joined the Fort Lauderdale Police Department from 1970 to 1980, when Fort Lauderdale wasn't. So the Fort Lauderdale's like the Riviera now, and I bet you people in Florida are saying no, it's not, right? But it is a kind of, it's a, it's been gentrified to a degree, but it wasn't this what it was in the 70s. The same as New York's not what it was in the 70s. And I always remember his quote, and he says, apologize never, even if I did something wrong, I did it for the right reasons, and you're like, oh yeah, we can still apologize, but that's right, isn't it?
I say because yeah, I have from your late Queen, was that Queen Elizabeth? She had as a quote that never explain, never complain.
Yeah.
And I follow that one because but as you say, I will never ask for forgiveness, but I will clarify my point. So maybe that was a bad example because I will explain,
Yeah.
and do follow up blogs, follow up everything. So, but no, I will not.
Oh,
I will not just buckle down
yeah.
because I'll have to stand in the storm that I created
Yeah.
because I did have a plan. It was not just throwing shit out there. It was very well thought through, but then again, we're all humans, and we know we don't know exactly what the consequences are going to be of our behavior, even if we try to analyze this all the
And
way through.
you were saying there, so what came to my mind there when you were talking about that is that you challenge somebody's belief system. Okay, so you say something and it's against a firmly held view or standpoint they have in their life, and that causes discomfort, outrage, anger, frustration. So that's a perfect example of the backlash of using aversive stuff, you
Voila.
know, and so the person's sitting there like this. And I remember the first time the first piece of do you remember Jack Bunn?
No, I'm
She
sorry,
was
I
at
don't.
she was at the first Woof. That's where I met her. And when was that? 2011 or something?
Way back. Yeah.
Right. And 2013, something like that. And the WOOF conference. And she did work for Neapolitan Mastiff Rescue, that's the dog I had before. And she wrote this article in a newsletter on operant and classical conditioning. And I had read, well, sorry, the dogma, and it is a dogma that I'd followed, was the kind of Caesar Milan pack theory stuff. And I remember reading this thinking, this is the biggest amount of rubbish I've ever heard in my life. Right? I mean, and I was so appalled, and because she basically, this whole thing said everything that you believe about dog training is wrong, and this is how it actually is. And it's an assault, yeah. It's an emotional assault, certainly, and a psychological assault. And what happens, I think, with people with their phones, and this is why I think one of the reasons people become so angry online is that if you go to a debate, we go from here to a debate and we sit in that debate room and we talk face to face and then we leave. Whereas our mobile phone, you're sitting in your living room and it's an assault in your house,
Yeah.
on your being, and it's so weird.
Yeah, it is, and it's a big part of. I've been waiting for research on human behavior on social media, and I actually can't find anything very interesting yet, because it's turned us into trolls and monsters and dog knows what. And as you say, a big part of explanation is exactly what you just said. I haven't thought about it in that way, that the difference between a private sphere and a professional sphere is just also just diminished. As you say, it's in my sofa, I'm sitting there, and this bloody test person says that it's completely unnecessary to teach a dog to sit, and I've spent at least 1,000 hours to teach my dog to sit. And yes, you're in your sofa, you're in your home, and it feels like I'm actually slapping you in your face in your sofa. You're not in a seminar, you have not actually asked for me to teach you anything, but you are on my social platform, so hey.
I know you came to my house. There used to be there was an old Scots law, and it's still on the book, well, because Scots law is ancient, you know, so, but it's called hamesucking. It's a Scots word, but it means assault in your own home. So if somebody comes to your home, it's when I joined the police, so I started my police career in 92 as a part-timer, and then joined in 97. And there was cops that I worked with who had libeled a hamesucking against people. So it was still on the books, you know, in a relative recent history. And it was deemed to be an aggravation because it was seen as a more serious offence than being assaulted in the street by somebody. So if somebody comes to your own domicile and assaults you, this is where we're supposed to be safe.
Exactly. This is a safe zone. It is a safety zone. And as you say, it should be sacred. And I try very hard. I didn't before, because again, I'm learning, is that I try really hard not to comment on other people's posts, in other people's homes, right? But I'll do it on my pages and my sites and my blogs, of course, and then people, then more or less, because that is my professional site. And what is fascinating there is always fascinating. I'm trying to say like three things at the same time. It's going to sort them out in perhaps a logical order. Is that I'm very often criticized for criticizing. When it's itself is rather humoristic.
That is funny.
So even if then I'll criticize a method, or I'll just put light on things that I disagree with, and I try to explain why. And then I've been criticized as a person for having that thought, and again, that's why I don't recommend people to do this if they don't whatever I have from my background and my childhood that's made me strong enough, that's within quotation marks, to keep it at a distance. It's no fun. I mean, I get stuff thrown at me that is horrendous, because when they try to argument, and they don't really have the arguments for it. Again, I'm coming back to when the knowledge is not good enough to actually argument for why they are so upset. They go taking me down as a person, or my dogs, or it could be, and then actually I get very upset. Don't criticize my dogs. That's crossing a line.
Because that's an assault again on your family.
It's my family.
Yeah, of course.
And again, yes, to take that. Because, and also maybe why dog trainers, why we get so upset, is that also there is no clear line between our family and a job, right? I mean, me bringing up my fur dog kids, we're not supposed to, that doesn't feel right. Not even in my...
I know. They're your dogs. They're your family, but they're
my family. They're my family members. Also, they are their only family members I have, so they are they are very prioritized, and yes, criticizing how I care for them is really hard to difference from my professional view, because where is there a clear line? Really, it's not really, is it? So I often also realize that that is the ground for a lot of problem in the world when it comes to dog training, that a lot of people have dogs, even if they don't have professional backgrounds. And every time we talk about how they take care of their dogs, we are stepping on people's toes, because it's not a clear profession. It's also a lifestyle, or family members, or tools.
Yeah. Expand on that when you're saying the tools.
Yeah, that this is going to wrap up with me. Also, when I see where the discussion originates from, when we look at aversive trainers, very often they have very easily trained dogs that they use more like as tools than I would ever do. I do have, my dogs are family members, and they have the first priority. I have a choice and control based training concept, and the trainers you see proclaiming aversive methods very often has now, well, I'm going to be a bit judgmental, but I'm warning you. No, so they'll have a Malinois or a Border Collie, a robot, a dog that is incredibly easy to train and incredibly easy to also punish, because we bred them so hard. They don't really think for themselves, and they don't defend themselves if they're being unfairly treated. And if you look at our side of the table, a lot of us come from working with not only dogs. I mean, I've worked with 50 different species, everything from bears to bugs.
Yeah.
I could never treat a bear the way aversive trainers treat their dogs, because I'll be eaten.
Yeah.
I'll be killed. So again, there'll be a higher knowledge, because you worked with so many more species that you can't threaten. If I threaten my wolves, they'll run away and I will never see them again, even if I bottle fed them, because there is no free relationship. They don't need me to survive. So if I would just hide my voice, they will run away and they will never get back. I will never recreate that very, very, very delicate trust they had with me. And if I were to say no to my bears, they'd chomp off my arm. Which they did. I was a not very good trainer when I started working with these bears, but I had to become one real quick, because I had so many bite marks, especially in my butt, because I had to run away from them.
And it was free contact. It wasn't protected contact.
Yeah, that's another thing we did learn by punishers.
Yeah, I know.
By being bitten. So yeah, that's how you become a better trainer real fast. And I was not even punishing these bears. Of course not. I'm not a complete idiot. But I was running out of treats.
Yeah.
Too quickly, right? That was my first bite in the butt. It's that I tried to do as I did foolishly with my poor little dogs. And I say, okay, Dan. And I made my little sign for session is over.
The bears like that, no, we're not.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Bunk. So again, working with other species than a dog that would sort of feel that frustration, end a training session with a negative sort of, okay, that was done. What am I going to supposed to do now? I'm nothing else to do. But they'll go lie down as in a blurred helplessness situation. The bear will go, for fuck's sake, no.
Yeah.
I'm not done with you. Come back here. So what I see very often is, yes, aversive trainers or crossover trainers, they very often have only trained dogs, and also very often easily trained dogs, or very cooperative dogs, with very little level of aggression. And yeah, again, if you look at the dogs I have today, my wannabe wolves, they are as close to proper wolves as I can come. But, it's Siberian Huskies, Malamutes, again, dogs that you don't treat them unfairly, because they'll tell you to bugger off, or they'll bugger off themselves. It
always amazes, and it's not a reflection. I remember being at a conference and I spoke to a trainer from Germany, and she said, I said, what kind of dog do you have? And she said, guess. I said, the German Shepherd. And she said, and that's just because she was German, that's what came to mind. And she said, no, but not. And I said, a border collie. And she said, yeah, but we migrate. Well, I don't, neither do you. Probably one of the reasons we go on as well as we do. The trainers migrate to dogs that make them look like they're excellent trainers. And that's fine because they want to train. It's totally fine. It's not, and again, it's not a judgment on anybody. But when people say, I do this with my border collie or my Malinois, and I said, that's awesome. I says, but show me you doing it with an Akita,
right.
Or a Shih Tzu,
yeah,
something, completely, a Papillon or some small Spitz breed, like a Finnish Spitz or a Lapland or something like that, and it's, if you can do it with those dogs and do it well. But I think a lot of the time people say, well, you're not training the dog to the same standard, but the dog's been bred for a different thing, eh?
Yeah, they have. And so yeah, and actually you pinned the two perfect examples with Akita or Shih Tzu, because again, it doesn't say that little dogs cannot have the same character that I love, that they will give you the finger if you don't treat them well. But as you say, no, we will not be able to use them as tools to get attention and podcasts and whatever. I don't know what people out there competing. Of course, I do know, and I see the reinforcers in competing with animals. I do. I highly question it, though.
For a human, the reinforcement for the human.
Voila, that's exactly it. And so I see it. But as you say, there are a few dogs that we see very frequently in high prestanda sports. And also it's very easy to see how they get away with a lot of aversive methods, because these are dogs that will just go, they'll hide, they'll try to perform better. And there are only a handful of dogs that will do that. And those are the handful of dogs we see in the hands of aversive trainers for obvious reasons. Because, since I'm taking only rescues, as you do yourself, these Malamutes and the Siberian Huskies that come to me, they have behavioral problems because they have been treated unfairly. They have been punished. And they say, after, they grow up, they all come to me when they're about a year old, because then they'll said, enough now. Yeah. That's enough. And then they get rehomed, right? Yeah. So you can only punish a independent dog, again, with labeling, but a dog that is bred to think for themselves and sort of, think for themselves and not accepting being treated unfairly. You can only treat them unfairly so far. And then they will either bite you or they will actually take off. But when we have these dogs that are being bred to be robots, they will endure so much bad handling. It's heartbreaking to see. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see. For me, it's heartbreaking to see. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of similarities here when you're saying that about, I've written about this before in the past, where we've got that, and I saw it and I know that I refer to, but my police career was a massive part. I was nearly half my life, and I learned, and I saw so much behaviour, from the public, from myself and from my colleagues. And you'll get that. So because the police, they say uniform disciplined organisation. So that's so it's not the military, because you won't need to be free thinking, but at the same time, you still need to do what you're told. If it's lawful, all right, that's the important part. If a supervisor gave you an order which was not lawful, you could turn around and say, I'm not doing it. But then that causes its own problems, Now, when you're saying there about those dogs like yours, that they get enough, they get pushed, and then they say no more. And that happened to me when I was, so we do a 2-year probation. So you're a probationary constable for 2 years, and then you confirmed in the role. And my supervisor just was a horrible bully. He was just a horrible, and even on reflection now, I'm older than he was at that time, and just a horrible human being. And the seconds my probation was out, and I mean the seconds, my probation was out on the Saturday, and this happened the following Thursday, right? the second my probation came out, I stood up to him because I was like, "You're not pushing me around anymore," you know. And it's not, I'm not bigging myself up or anything like that, because it was a horrible time in my life, but he didn't know how to handle it. And what he started doing was lumping more and more and more aversion on me, which I then started fighting back again more and more and more, you know. And I just took it. I took it because I was so pig-headed, you know. But I was like that. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to me that you're not already? You couldn't assault me, you know. He just gave me every shit job going, and like I walked the beat on my own for 7 nights, night shift on my own, and in the piss and rain, and you know, it was just a horrible experience. But there was other guys who he treated exactly the same that just got along with it, and they're the kind of go along to get along dogs. This is my life. I'll just accept it. And I'll do whatever I need to do to navigate this life with the least amount of hardship from you. Whereas that wasn't, I don't know where it comes from. right, I know where it comes from, but that wasn't my personality, you know.
It is, and we can dig into where it comes from.
Yeah, sorry, I know I've played long and hard, long and examining where it came from.
Because as you're saying here is that some of us, I mean, I respond incredibly bad to authorities. That's why I run my own business, and I know I'm not even a good team leader. I'm not. I do best on my own, just running my own show. Because I'm and this. Oh, as you say, our behavior here is a product from how we were brought up, and then the insight we have in changing our own behavior or not. Just as that bully you had as a boss, I mean, he's a product of his upbringing and his environment, where he's getting away with it. And you let him get away with it for as long as you knew that the punisher of fighting back during the probation, is that a word? Would have been devastating for you. You would have been
I lost my job.
Yeah, you would have been kicked out of the program, right? But as soon as that threat of a punisher was gone,
interesting.
He backed it up. And that will be the Malamute coming to me, because he was he was still an adolescent, but then he got 1 year old and he said, enough now, for fuck's sake, you do not push me around by the scruff anymore. I'll bite you back. You bite me, I'll bite you back. And we know aggression creates aggression. A bully creates bullying. I mean, it's horrible to see. And this is what's amazing with people, that if you've been bullied as a child, the risk of growing up being a bully yourself or abuser is so much bigger. Even if we know it hurt us, we might end up copying the behavior when we have a chance to sort of get back ourselves. If we do not do extensive work trying to change our learned behaviors from childhood and become better people. So it will all boil down to the level of, if you're in the level of where you choose the methods you choose to handle your dog, the methods you choose to handle people, will all boil down to your understanding of behavior change, the level of knowledge, and the level of will to change yourself, to say, I was wrong. And that's one of the hardest thing we do, to admit that, oh my God, that was not fair. I treated whomever it is, my dog or my family or my friend, horribly. And as humans, we can, hopefully we understand, and we can ask for forgiveness, say, I'm sorry, I treated you that way. I'm very, it's a big trigger for me when people are self-centered. That is one of my biggest triggers, because I'm brought up by incredibly self-centered parents.
Yeah.
So, but now I know. I didn't know in my 20s. I just behaved badly because I didn't know what was triggering my behavior, or badly. There was coping mechanisms for me. And as a human, I can learn, I can understand, I have self-insight, I can change. Our dogs do not. Our dogs are 100% a product of how they have been treated, brought up, and they will not have the reflection. They will actually not do anything out of spite. They will not do things to try to hurt someone or being a bully. They don't. They just behave there and then after what is most beneficial in that situation. So that's why we can't blame them for any behavior, but we can blame ourselves for behavior that we express that we could have done better, because we have that reflective ability. Dogs do not.
Yeah. So you were saying that there are a few things there when you're, I'm just going to touch briefly on it, and then we're going to move on to what I just want to expand on a couple of things you'd said there. That, so, going through if you're going through the 12 steps or that fellowship, and the one of them is the make amends. So that's one, and I don't know what step it is, but the other one's is taking, what is it? It's something like a radically honest stock of your life, right? It's something like that, but that's been brutally honest about what you've done to others, and then so you have to take stock of all those things, and then you have to go and make amends, and you may not be able to because the person's passed or they've moved away or whatever, and you can't get in touch with them, or it's so painful for you to resurrect that relationship. So, but we can do that with ourselves, when you're saying at the start about how do we forgive ourselves, and this is one. I mean, I used, this. I used prong collars. I used grot collars on my dogs previously. I hit them, but was a young man, kind of macho profession with big mastiffs, and I'm getting together some thoughts on this because I'll probably do a podcast episode on it. And I had, and I'm still not there because I still got upset thinking about it, But when I got Logan, I was like, I will do everything that I can to make sure that didn't happen to him. I didn't succeed. I mean, I can probably count on two hands the amount of time that when I say lost my temper with him, it's been pulling him harshly when he's been reacting to something. It's not, not smacking him around or grabbing him or anything like that. But it takes so how do we forgive ourselves if we've left that life behind us and we want to have a more positive, reward-based approach to click and treat for Johnny, right? And a more reward-based approach to our dogs. How do we move into that?
It's because you're also onto something very important here, that you are a crossover trainer. I'm not. I got into this world late. I was in my 30s, and I don't want to call it 30s crisis, because that's of course a society made up concept, but I was in changes in life. It's like, okay, what the heck am I going to do now? And I just sort of fell into the dog training world, and I by chance fell into a reward-based dog training instructor school. And by doing so, I actually didn't have to forgive myself for previous teaching methods, right? Because I had never trained an animal before. It just boop, and there was a clicker in my hand, and off I went. And I think that is the positive side of that. That's why I'm sort of so far ahead. I'm not, far ahead. I'm so progressive. I'm way out there because I've never been pulled back by old methods, outdated methods, but it's also the weakness is that I will become very dogmatic, bombastic, black and white, because I don't have to forgive myself for being very harsh. I still have situations where I have to forgive myself, like my first dog, my first little mini pinscher. I think we do that all of us is doing that from every dog. We will realize that, oh, wow. I mean, me now, 20 years later, I wish I could give Lana today the knowledge I have today. But so I have to forgive myself for not giving her the life I can give my dogs today. But, and the things to forgive myself for that, and what I always, when we do discuss this in my crossover community, is how to forgive yourself is write a letter to your dog where you explain that what you're sorry. So putting things in paper, in words, in paper, getting it out of your head. It's never very constructive to just think, but putting it into words and actually writing it down. So all my clients in Good Dog Academy, they get to write letters to the dogs, the previous dogs. And just say I'm sorry I didn't know better. If I knew better I would have done better, but I didn't know, so sorry for. And the more detailed they dare to be, sorry for that situation where I treated you unfairly like that, sorry for every time I made, the more they will put down on that paper, the easier it is to take the letter. And there's also a choice what to do with the letter. Do you want to burn it, like symbolically, that is the old me, now it's gone? Or do you want to keep it because you need to repeat to yourself where you were and where you're heading? So that will be that's one of the practical examples I have in how to forgive yourself for previous training methods or handling dogs unfairly, is to write it down and actually ask your dog for forgiveness. Especially if you have a crossover dog as well, you're on a journey together, and your dog will always forgive you if you can forgive, and if you can forgive yourself, then you have a happy dog and a happy human. And that's what I always try to strive for. If you have, I used to show a illustration on this. When you have one situation is Tess comes with new knowledge, and the person will say no, that can't be right, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and there'll be a defensive reaction where the human is still happy because they stay ignorant, but the dog is still being treated unfairly. And then you have a middle, and there's a lot of us in the middle that will go, okay, Tess has taught me this. Oh my God, I'm the worst person on earth. So I'll change. And my dog is now happy, but I feel like shit. And this is where we need to move on to stage 3, where, okay, I forgive myself for I'm happy, I learned more, and I know better now, so I'll do better now. So I forgive myself, I'm happy, and I'm changing how I treat my dog, so my dog is happy too. And it's very important we go through those different stages and come out the other end when I'm happy, my dog is happy, and we're moving on as progressive people and modern people should.
You're saying there, and it's just because I know that, so if I had heard, I've done right, I had to do a lot of work in the last few years, and started reading the Stoics, and Meditations is Marcus Aurelius's journal, so that wasn't for anybody else other than himself. And the guy Ryan Holiday, that I listen to his podcast and I read his books and stuff, and he talks about the value of journaling, which is what that letter is. So if I'd have heard 15 years ago, write a letter to your dog, I'd have thought that was a bunch of new age nonsense, but it's actually, one, we can reframe it. It's not writing a letter, it's journaling, right? But it's the same thing. You're just putting your thoughts down on paper. And one of the interesting stories I heard about journaling was Abraham Lincoln used to, if he was angry with somebody, he would write a letter to them, and then he would seal it and leave it in his desk for a day or 2 or a week. And if he still wanted to send it, he would wait another day. And he never sent his letters, because it's getting the bile out of your head,
Yeah. And to maybe wrap up this beautifully segue is that's why we step away from the computer or the telephone before we comment on social media posts, because it's truly the same thing, right? And actually absolutely. I do, because you say if it's writing a letter or journaling, it's truly putting it out there in words, reflect about it. Don't send it out in the or don't post that letter, don't post that comment immediately. Take a step back and let your emotional response control that one first. And yes, and making sure that you're handling your own reaction in a as constructive way as possible. So, and as you say, either sending the letter or not sending the letter, this is actually a letter to yourself,
Yeah.
right? Or to your dog. And so, yeah, but as you say, it's a really good metaphor in what we should all do at all times, and maybe also before we speak.
And that's interesting. I'm gonna move on from this in a second. It's so so we had I remember in fact it was after probably after one of the I think it was after the Ferguson shooting in so that'd be 2017 or something like this. In Ferguson, Missouri, when the young black guy was shot,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then there was the riots after, right, and rightly so. Well, rightly so, there was protests. We can argue whether rioting is the right response to it. Anyway, bunch of cops came over, a bunch of chiefs came over from the US to the Scottish Police College because they wanted to study how do we deal with because Glasgow certainly and it's only changed in the last 15 years. Historically, it was a really violent city with knife crime and lots of knife crime, and I mean a lot. You know, when I was growing up, it was always in the back of my mind that there was that threat that you're going to be assaulted with somebody with a knife, another young man, and the cops these chiefs came out and they went out into the city centre, and there was a reporter from the New York Times came out with them. And he said that what he liked about it, there's a lot of different, and we're not getting into here. I could talk about this, expand it more. It is interesting. But he said what he liked was that the cops here engaged with the public all the time with banter, right? So it was like you would see people going into the pubs at 7 or 8 o'clock, and then the cops would engage with them, you know. And it would be backwards and forwards, and it'd be kind of cheeky and irreverent, and you know, so you know, just kind of joke, making fun about people's shoes, but not in a bullying way, just backwards and forwards. Have a nice night, guys. On you go. So you then see them coming out at 11 o'clock, having been drinking for a few hours. They would then go into the clubs, and then the clubs would spill at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and the cops working that beat would see the same people, but they would be now 8 or 10 beers in, and get yourself up the road, on you go, right? Rather than being that kind of authoritarian way. Now, what that did for me, and this is what I had to, just what you're saying there, take a step back from the computer, you become excellent at having a sharp tongue. And I mean, like that, you know, I mean, and it's like, I see stuff online and I like that, and it's like, I just roll my sleeves up, right? And you've seen me do it, you know, and right. And it's not cool. It's not cool to give somebody a kicking on the internet. And what I had to do with that, and again, it's just behaviour. I then had to realise I pissed that guy off or that woman off online. And do you know who they're going to take it out on? Their dog or their child or the barista or their neighbour. And then if they take it out on their neighbour, the neighbour's going to take it out on their dog or their child. And it's just dripping poison into the environment because you can't control your emotions. And just taking that step back and breathing. Do I even need to respond to this, or can I just delete or hide that comment? Yeah, I'll just do that.
That's exactly it. So instead of dropping poison, we want to sow seeds of change, right? To take another beautifully put argument from the Changemaker Foundation that we are so incredibly proud to be part of, and you as well, that we got this extraordinary award of being a change maker, and there's nothing I'm more proud of. But I have also, as I say, I've also gone from dropping poison to sowing seeds, because there's a major difference in how you try to create that change. If you, as you said before, is it only provocative or provoking, or starting a change of train of thoughts that has somewhere to go, that can actually sort of move on forward, and you try to get as many people on board as possible. And but I also discussing it just the other day with other behaviorists, that I had to, take into account that, again, I'm a product of my upbringing. My father was incredibly sarcastic and demeaning, and it's in my system. So when I get pressured, I have a tendency to do the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And that in combination, because that would be my learning history from a very young age, and behavior we learn early on sticks really deep. And if I'm today, I will have one comment that, I want to write something, and I know again that the short-term reinforcer is so much stronger than the potential far away punisher, like writing that little snarky comment.
Yeah.
And I feel clever, and I feel I'm pushing people down because they don't know better, and I feel fantastic for like 3 seconds, and then I feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
and this is also why, if you look at the other way, why Punisher works when people are punishing dogs, because it does work there and then. And if you don't know better, you won't even feel bad about it, because it worked.
Yeah.
So reinforcing for a human to punish their dogs, because if they go no and the dog stops barking,
even they wanted.
It's being rewarded, right? The no behaviors, the punishing behavior is being rewarded, even if the dog starts barking again, of course, after 10 seconds, because we haven't changed the inner motivation of the dog, right? Or the motivation of the dog. But there is, well, if you look at it again from if we understand our own behavior, we will also understand dogs' behaviors better, right? We will have the tolerance for dogs being scared, frightened, upset, because I know I get scared, frightened, upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can bite.
Yeah.
Only in a socially more or less appropriate behavior. Yeah. So with words instead of with my teeth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of a big difference, because we are, in quotes, civilized, so we can't be, well, we're not allowed to be. We still do it sometimes, but so just lastly on this, I'm just conscious of the time, because usually I'll try and keep these about an hour for people, and just kind of because we could talk for much longer, and we know we're going to have more conversations anyway. So how do we apply those new skills of if we have learned that I used to train this way, okay, so I would harshly intervene or be unfair to the dog in the moment, and then the dog's still doing something that I don't want to do. What are good practices to help us in the moment when our blood is up, to act in a more fair way to the dog? What strategies can we use there?
Breathe. Take a deep breath. It really is. It's always, breathing is the most magical behavior changing tool we have, because taking a deep breath will literally reset your inner system. I'm going to simplify this horribly, but yes, take a deep breath. Try to just take one step back, take a deep breath, because we are responsible for changing our emotional responses. Yeah. We are not a product of our childhood. We are not a product of forever, right? We have all this fantastic research now. I'm going to bring up the book so I don't quote the name, but Lisa Feldman Barrett, with all the fantastic research she has on emotions, and that it's not that we are only a victim of our emotions. We are responsible for changing our emotional responses, just like we do. I mean, my work is changing emotional responses in very fearful, aggressive, stressed dogs. So I can clicker train that, right?
Yeah.
So of course I can clicker train myself doing the same thing. And I think that is a game changer for a lot of people that believe in traditional emotional theory, that emotions just happen and we have 5 core emotions and they're just there. No, actually they're not. They are subjective responses to previous learning history. And if I do change the learning history in responses, first I have to map them. I have to map what situations triggers me so that I get an emotional response. What is that? Yeah, well, it's people parking poorly in Oslo, you know, taking 2 parking spots. I can choose to go, oh, you stupid Tesla owning oil cowboys thinking only about yourself. Or I can choose to take a deep breath, realize this is not the end of the world. I'll drive another round around the block because I've planned better. I'm not stressed. I have good time. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And again, with my dogs, if I have a 50-kilo Alaskan Malamute that is lounging out because a little Chihuahua barked at him at the other side of the street.
Yeah. How dare you?
I can choose to get very upset and punish him, or go, take a deep breath, reel him in. Again, as you say, that's when we use punishers, because we're in a society or we plan poorly. Take a deep breath. Forgive your dog for reacting, for being scared, for his learning history. He was terrified of little dogs in coats. Dogs in coats, he just doesn't understand what it was. They could just go and die. And then I have to forgive myself for getting very scared, because I get scared I'll lose control over him.
Yeah, you'll get pulled into the roads. Yeah.
Yeah, and just take that little Chihuahua and shake it. So there is so much going on. But I have to just take a deep breath. This is so much easier in Italy. Also, just talking about cultural situations where Scandinavians, you know, we're not supposed to show any emotions.
Oh, you're brutal. You're brutal.
Horrible, right? Horrible.
Yeah.
And in Italy, if I was walking there with Baba and this little Chihuahua in a jacket went, chip, chip, and Baba responded with going, blah. The old couple owning the Chihuahua on the other side of the road, they will go, yeah, wow, bravo lupo, bravo lupo. Because emotions there are accepted.
Yeah.
If you get upset, you show it. If you're happy, you show it.
Yeah.
So it's such an amazing difference in my response then, of course. Instead of yelling at me, oh, you there with your dangerous dog, because that's what happens in Scandinavia, or they look sourly at you and never talk to you again. But in Italy, they would go, and I would go, scusi, scusi, and no, sei naturale, sei naturale. Emotions are natural.
Yeah.
But we can still train ourselves in behaving better if we map situations that we lose control over our behavior, plan better, and train ourselves to behave better. It's absolutely, I try to do that every day.
Perfect. Awesome. This has been great, and we'll probably, in fact, we will talk more about emotional stuff, because I could actually talk another hour about this. But we'll get that scheduled, and we'll come back on and talk about it. So, but I really appreciate what you got planned for the rest of your day.
Well, I'm being told by the 2 bosses in the family here, who want to be wolves, that it's about time to go out for a long hike. So I'm gonna go pick some chanterelles, mushrooms, and I'm gonna fire up my what is that? Storm. We call it storm kitchen. You know, a little little stove you take out.
Yeah. Portable stove.
Portable stove. So I'll take that one out, and I'll sit somewhere where it's an amazing view, and I'll have the most perfect outdoor lunch with no people.
Good. Brilliant. Hang on for a second. We'll just finish up here. So, and then we'll get our next one arranged after we finish recording. Where can people reach you?
Oh, at Good Dog Best Friends.
Okay.
Good Dog Best Friends. That'll be Facebook, Instagram, Good Dog Best Friends, and that's enough, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll stick them in the show notes, and it's just Tess's content's lovely. Your content's lovely. Okay, a little postscript. So one of the things that we do here is we ask one of my guests a previous guest to leave a question for you, and then you'll leave a question for somebody in the future. Okay. So somebody's asked, What do you find as a trainer or teacher that helps you motivate a client to work with their dog?
Oh, good question. What helps motivating? What I do always start with is because if they come to me, they come with unwanted behaviors, so to speak. So I will ask them to focus on why they love their dog. Give me 3 reasons for why you love your dog. So we'll start that to sort of reconnect to the relationship, the love, the care. So I'll start there so we don't get only fixated on maybe the 3% that is not working that they want to fix.
Yeah.
So back to the 97% why you love this dog, and have that as a sort of baseline. And then I'll ask for the lowest criteria of the new wanted behavior. I would put some tools in their hands immediately that brings them joy.
Yeah.
So even if that is just teaching them how to deliver a reinforcer or play good with their dog, I'll give them something really easy that they really enjoy doing with their dog. And then I'll apply that. This will mostly be a reward behavior and play. People don't play enough with their dogs.
Yeah,
so
no.
I'll teach them to play with their dog, and you'll see how they just sparkle because it's so much fun to play with this dog, to the dog again. And then we'll add the play reinforcer into the training program. So that's already established. So yes, shortly, 1, make them focus on why they love their dog. 2, teach them to play with the dog. So to even more. So they love their dog even more. Reinforcing for everyone.
Perfect. That's lovely. Okay, so thank you. All right, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.